Ramiah Griffin's sister tells us that suspect Adeline Atongwa actually attended Ramiah's funeral and in her view has been
I need you. I need you. I need you. I need you.
What happens when the promise of a bright future is shattered in an instant within the walls of a home where love once lived? In Pittsburgh, a city known for its bridges, who will bridge the gap between appearance and reality when trust falls into the shadows of betrayal. Beneath the tranquil skyline of Pittsburgh, a city lauded for its scenic vistas and neighborly charm, lies a chilling contradiction. A young life snuffed out in its prime, the grim discovery of 20-year-old Ramiah Griffin, fatally shot in her Baldwin Borough apartment.
Ramiah Griffin's sister tells us that suspect Adeline Atongwa actually attended Ramiah's funeral and in her view has been
Tears through the fabric of this community, setting off a cascade of questions that demand answers. Who could commit such a heinous act, and why here? Why Ramiah, whose vibrant spirit and loving heart knew no bounds? This is not just a case to be closed, but a mystery that carries the weight of a poignant tragedy, urging us to look beyond the surface. Welcome to True Crime Angle. For more gripping true crime stories like this, subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated on the latest investigations. Share these stories to spread awareness and ensure you and your friends are part of the conversation on these critical issues. Now let's crack this case wide open. Ramiah Griffin was a beacon of creativity and warmth, a young woman whose passion for fashion and flair for hairstyling made her a beloved figure in her community. With her infectious smile and a keen eye for style, she turned sidewalks into runways and ordinary days into scenes from a vibrant life. As much as she loved fashion, her greatest role was that of a mother. Her daughter, barely a year old, was the center of her universe. Every decision Ramiah made, every step she took was with the intention of building a brighter, more stable future for her little girl. On the day her life was brutally cut short, Ramiah's morning was filled with the usual flurry of activity. She dropped her daughter off at daycare, posted a quick update on her latest hairstyling tutorial online, and texted friends about plans for a quiet dinner at her place later in the week. It was a day like any other, marked by the simple, joyful routines that stitched the fabric of her daily life. By afternoon, she was back in her apartment, perhaps preparing for the next day's client appointments or selecting outfits for her upcoming video shoots. The normalcy of that day made what happened next all the more shocking. When the police arrived at her apartment in response to a concerned call from a friend who hadn't been able to reach her, they were met with a scene that was as heartbreaking as it was horrifying. Ramiah's lifeless body was discovered in her living room, a place where just hours earlier she had been full of life and dreams. The stark contrast between Ramiah's vibrant morning activities and the grim crime scene underscored the sheer randomness and cruelty of the act, leaving her family, friends, and the entire community reeling from the impact. As investigators began to piece together the events leading to her tragic end, the question on everyone's lips was a whispered why. Why Ramiah, whose only ambition was to love, create, and thrive? The initial call to the police came from a friend who had grown increasingly worried after multiple unsuccessful attempts to reach Ramiah throughout the day. This friend knew Ramiah's routines well and felt a creeping unease as each call went unanswered, a stark deviation from Ramiah's usual prompt replies. Acting on instinct, the friend requested a wellness check at Ramiah's apartment, a decision that would soon unveil the grim reality of the situation. Upon arrival, the officers were met with silence, a stark contrast to the vibrant life Rhea was known for. After a forced entry, they found Raya's body lying in a haunting tableau of violence and tragedy in her own living room. Nearby, her young daughter, miraculously unharmed physically, was discovered in her crib, crying and distressed, having been alone for hours after the fatal shots were fired. The scene painted a heartbreaking picture. A young mother, violently taken from her child, who was left bewildered and frightened amidst the chaos. The crime scene was meticulously processed for evidence. Investigators found multiple shell casings scattered across the floor, indicating a struggle or multiple shots fired at close range. The state of the apartment suggested a hasty, violent encounter. Furniture was askew, personal items were strewn about, and there was a noticeable absence of forced entry, suggesting Rhea may have known her attacker. Forensic teams collected fingerprints and DNA evidence from the scene, hoping these would lead to quick answers about who was responsible for such a brutal act. As the initial shock subsided, detectives began to piece together the events leading up to the murder. They scrutinized Rhea's recent communications, texts, calls, and social media posts, for any hint of trouble or unusual behavior. Each piece of evidence collected, from the shell casings to the disarray in her apartment, was a grim puzzle piece in a story that no one wished to tell. The presence of her daughter at the scene added an urgent poignancy to the investigation, as it underscored not just the loss of life, but the shattering of a young family. The task ahead was daunting but clear: to unravel the mystery of Raya's last hours and find justice for a life so cruelly and abruptly ended. Adeline Itona, originally from Kenya, had moved to Pittsburgh as a young man, seeking better opportunities and a fresh start. It was here, amid the bustling urban landscape, that he first crossed paths with Raya at a local community event. Their connection was immediate and magnetic. They shared a love for music, a passion for creativity, and a dream of building something beautiful together. As their relationship deepened, so too did their commitment to one another, culminating in the birth of their daughter, which both initially saw as a new chapter in their shared story. However, the addition of a new member to their family began to strain their relationship. The pressures of parenthood, combined with their youthful inexperience, started to erode the foundations of their partnership. Over time, the laughter that once filled their home grew less frequent, replaced by a tense silence that neither could seem to break. Despite their best efforts, the couple eventually decided to part ways, though they remained connected through their daughter, vowing to co-parent effectively out of love for her. Suspicion regarding Adeline's involvement in Rhea's murder arose when inconsistencies appeared in his initial alibi. Adeline had claimed he was out of town on business at the time of Rhea's death, yet surveillance footage and cell phone records suggested otherwise. His vehicle was captured on a traffic camera near Rhea's apartment around the time she was believed to have been killed. Furthermore, forensic analysis of the crime scene revealed fingerprints and DNA evidence that matched Adeline, placing him at the scene despite his assertions to the contrary. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered a series of heated exchanges between Rhea and Adeline in the days leading up to her murder, revealed through text messages and voicemails. These exchanges suggested that their attempts at amicable co-parenting were faltering, with disputes over custody and financial support becoming increasingly contentious. The once loving relationship had, unbeknownst to even those closest to them, devolved into a simmering conflict that, according to prosecutors, might have motivated a tragic outcome. With each piece of evidence, Adeline transitioned in the eyes of the law from Raya's former partner to the prime suspect in her murder. The man who had once shared her dreams and her bed was now sitting across from detectives, answering for a crime that seemed to betray everything they had once planned together. As the investigation into Rhea Griffin's murder unfolded, detectives employed a variety of technological tools and investigative techniques to build a case against Adeline Itona. The pivotal breakthrough came with the retrieval of GP's data from Adeline's vehicle, which contradicted his claim of being out of town during the time of the murder. This data placed his car near Ria's apartment shortly before the estimated time of death. Additionally, surveillance footage from a nearby convenience store provided a time-stamped visual confirmation of Adeline in the area, further eroding his alibi. Detectives also leveraged cell phone tracking technology, which showed Adeline's phone moving towards Ria's apartment and then back to his own home on the night of the murder. This movement was inconsistent with his statements to police. Forensic experts enhanced video from various surveillance cameras along Adeline's route, piecing together his movements with greater precision. Each technological lead added another layer of evidence, methodically boxing Adeline into a corner from which it was increasingly difficult to defend his innocence. However, the investigation was not without its challenges. The emotional toll on Ria's family and friends compounded the pressure on the investigative team to deliver justice swiftly and thoroughly. The community, shaken by the brutality of the crime in what was considered a safe neighborhood, followed the case with a mix of sorrow and fear. This public scrutiny occasionally led to tensions between community expectations and the methodical, often slow reality of criminal investigations. Logistically, the team grappled with the challenges of coordinating between different law enforcement agencies, managing the influx of tips from the public, many of which led nowhere, and passing through volumes of digital data that required careful analysis. Ensuring the integrity of the evidence, particularly digital evidence that could easily be contested in court, was paramount, necessitating meticulous cross-verification and secure handling procedures. Throughout the investigation, detectives remained acutely aware of the broader impact of their work. The murder had ruptured the fabric of the community, instilling a palpable sense of vulnerability among residents. The team's dedication to transparency, coupled with regular updates to the community and the victim's family, helped to maintain public trust and underscored the gravity with which they approached the case. As the web of evidence tightened around Adeline, the investigative team prepared to present their findings. This preparation was not just about securing a conviction, but about restoring a sense of justice and safety to a community forever changed by a moment of inexplicable violence. The ripple effects of Ramiah Griffin's tragic murder reverberated deeply through her community and family, drawing a visceral reaction from all who knew her or learned of her story. The community, bound together by a collective sense of loss and disbelief, organized multiple vigils and tributes in her honor. Candlelit gatherings illuminated the very streets Ramiah once walked, each flickering flame a testament to her vibrant life and the darkness her absence had cast. Flowers, photos, and personal notes adorned makeshift memorials, creating a sanctuary of memories and mourning. These tributes not only provided a space for communal grieving, but also acted as a public plea for justice and to stand against the violence that had shaken their peaceful existence. As poignant as the public displays of sorrow were, the private torment endured by Ria's family was heartbreakingly profound. Her parents and siblings found themselves navigating the sharp edges of a new and painful reality. The family clung to one another, drawing strength from shared memories of Ria's laughter and love. Yet, it was Ria's young daughter who remained at the heart of the family's ordeal. Innocently unaware of the gravity of her loss, she frequently asked for her mother, her simple queries reopening the family's wounds. Ria's mother, now thrust into the role of caregiver for her granddaughter, balanced her deep grief with the need to provide a sense of normalcy for the little girl who resembled Ramiah more with each passing day. The family's resolve to see justice served became a cornerstone of their coping strategy. They actively participated in the legal process, attending every court hearing and working closely with prosecutors to understand the progression of the case against Adeline. This active engagement, though emotionally draining, was fueled by desperate need for closure and a hope that justice for Raya could prevent similar tragedies in the future. Internally, the family also sought to preserve Ria's legacy through initiatives aimed at raising awareness about domestic violence and supporting single mothers. They established a foundation in Raya's name to provide scholarships to young women pursuing careers in fashion and beauty, reflecting Ria's passions and aspirations. These efforts provided the family with a sense of purpose, helping them channel their grief into actions that honored Raya's life and values. The community's support for the family was unwavering. Neighbors, friends, and even strangers rallied to provide emotional and financial support, participating in fundraisers and offering whatever comfort they could. This communal embrace acted as a buffer against the rawness of their grief, reminding Ria's family that they were not alone in their mourning. The courtroom became the stage upon which the final chapter of Ramiah Griffin's tragic story was to be publicly scripted. The prosecution painted Adeline Etona not just as Raya's former partner, but as a man driven by control and jealousy to commit an unthinkable act. They meticulously presented the evidence: GP's data placing Adeline at the scene, surveillance footage from the area, forensic evidence from the apartment, and the damning inconsistencies in Adeline's initial alibi. Each piece of evidence was linked back to a narrative of a fractured relationship that culminated in murder. Key witnesses included friends of Ramiah who testified about the deterioration of the couple's relationship, as well as experts who explained the technical evidence with precision. Perhaps the most poignant testimony came from Ria's family, who provided the court with a vivid image of the life Adeline had allegedly taken away. They spoke not only of their loss, but also of the future Ramiah had been building, both for herself and for her daughter. The defense, on the other hand, sought to cast doubt on the prosecution's case by questioning the reliability of the forensic evidence and suggesting that the couple's troubled relationship was not motive enough for murder. They proposed alternative theories for the crime, hinted at possible other suspects, and emphasized Adeline's role as a father who loved his daughter, suggesting he had no reason to harm the mother of his child. The tension in the courtroom was palpable as the jury retired to deliberate, leaving a community in suspense and a family clinging to hope. After days of deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict: guilty of first-degree murder. The courtroom was suffused with a mix of relief and profound sorrow as the verdict was read. For Raya's family, the conviction provided a measure of justice, though it was a grim reminder that no verdict could bring Ramiah back. The community's reaction was mixed. While many felt that justice had been served, the trial had exposed unsettling truths about domestic violence and the hidden dangers lurking behind closed doors. Media coverage of the trial had been intense, and in its aftermath, there was a significant focus on the need for better resources and support for victims of domestic abuse. The verdict also sparked broader discussions on social media and among community groups about the legal system's handling of domestic violence cases. Advocacy groups used the outcome as a rallying point to demand changes in how such cases are investigated and prosecuted. The media, meanwhile, continued to follow the story, documenting the aftermath of the trial and the community's efforts to come to terms with the tragedy. The resolution of Ramiah Griffin's case resonated far beyond the confines of the courtroom, echoing through the halls of legislative bodies, across the airwaves of media discussions, and into the very fabric of community initiatives. The severity and visibility of the case prompted a critical re-evaluation of local laws concerning domestic violence, spotlighting the urgent need for stronger protective measures and support systems for victims. Advocacy groups, galvanized by the public outcry, lobbied for the passage of Ria's Law, a series of proposed legal reforms aimed at enhancing the enforcement of restraining orders and improving the response times and resources available to domestic violence calls. The case also served as a catalyst for increased domestic violence awareness. Local community centers and non-profits ramped up their outreach efforts, hosting workshops and seminars to educate the public about the signs of domestic abuse and the available resources for those affected. Schools incorporated discussions about healthy relationships into their curriculums, aiming to instill a deeper understanding of consent and respect from a young age. In the midst of legislative and educational shifts, the community sought to honor Ramiah's memory in a manner that reflected her life's passions and her vibrant spirit. A memorial garden was established in one of her favorite parks, with a bench inscribed with quotes from Ramiah's own writings on love and hope. Annually, on the anniversary of her death, the community held a walk for Ramiah, where participants wore colors that represented her love for fashion, bright and bold, a visual testament to her enduring influence. Media coverage, which had been extensive during the trial, continued to spotlight Ramiah's story in the aftermath, focusing on the positive changes spurred by the tragedy. Documentaries and feature articles explored the broader implications of her case on societal attitudes towards domestic violence and the transformative power of community action. These stories kept Ramiah's legacy alive in the public consciousness, serving as a continual reminder of both the cost of inaction and the potential for communal resilience. Ramiah's family, while privately contending with their grief, became outspoken advocates for domestic violence survivors. They established a foundation in her name that offered scholarships to young women pursuing careers in fashion and beauty, industries Ramiah had been passionate about. This foundation not only preserved her memory, but also empowered other young women to pursue their dreams with the support that Ramiah had once embodied. Through these multifaceted responses, legal, educational, communal, and personal, Ramiah Griffin's tragic death forged a legacy of awareness, change, and activism. Her story, marked by sorrow, became a beacon for hope and action, illustrating how personal tragedy can transform into a powerful catalyst for societal progress. In the years following the case, Ramiah's spirit, encapsulated in initiatives and reforms, continued to inspire and drive change, ensuring that her life, though cut tragically short, would leave a lasting impact on the world around her. The tragic case of Ramiah Griffin unfolded under the watchful eyes of a shaken community, from the discovery of her lifeless body in her own home, with her young daughter by her side, to the gripping courtroom drama that followed. The subsequent conviction of Adeline Itona for her murder marked a poignant moment of justice, albeit one that arrived amidst profound grief. The evidence laid bare a tale of lost love, betrayal, and the darkest reaches of human action. As we reflect on this case, let us recognize the critical need for increased awareness and proactive support for victims of domestic violence. It is imperative that anyone experiencing abuse knows they are not alone and that help is available. Organizations such as the National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-99-799, SAFE, and local shelters can provide life-saving support and resources. The fragility of life, as illustrated by Ramiah's story, underscores the essential role of community vigilance. It reminds us that behind closed doors, there can exist struggles that demand our attention and intervention. Let us commit to being observant, supportive neighbors and friends who do not hesitate to act when we suspect someone is in danger. Since the trial, Ramiah's family, though forever altered by their loss, has made significant strides in transforming their grief into advocacy. The foundation established in Ramiah's name continues to support young women in the arts and advocates for stronger protections against domestic violence. The annual Walk for Ramiah has grown, drawing participants from across the state, each step forward a testament to the community's resolve to never forget and always fight back against domestic abuse. The legal reforms proposed in the wake of Ramiah's case, collectively known as Ramiah's Law, are making their way through legislative bodies, promising to bolster the resources available to victims and tighten the legal repercussions for perpetrators of domestic violence. The ongoing advocacy in Ramiah's memory serves not only as a beacon of hope for affected families, but also as a clarion call to our society to uphold the dignity and safety of every individual. Let us honor Ramiah's memory By continuing to support these vital efforts, by educating ourselves and others about domestic violence, and by standing up against abuse in all its forms. In this way, Ria's spirit, her love for life and hope for a better future will continue to inspire change and foster a safer world for all. If you haven't already, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Next time, we'll uncover another case where betrayal, secrets, and unimaginable decisions changed lives forever.